Hey everyone, today I wanted to show you how the meta of planes have changed throughout 2020 after all the adjustments DICE made to plane specs and the anti-air capabilities. Earlier in the year, the Pacific Bomber variants with flares and the 500 pound ×2 were the anti-everything plane that lets you kill tanks in one pass, dogfight better than other variants, and drop overpowered flares. On the Western Front, you had a few more choices between using the overpowered bombers or the fighters that were also quite capable, but since the introduction of the Americans on the Western Front, there has been quite a bit of changes. The Fliegerfaust has been buffed again to be able to one-shot fighters relatively easily, especially if you fly low, and the AA guns have also been buffed that can certainly pose a considerable threat to you if you carelessly fly into that protected airspace. And that brings me to start experimenting with loadouts that I largely ignored on the Pacific Plains, as well as using a similar loadout on a British Spitfire VB, German Bf-109G6, and American Mustang P-51D variants. And earlier in the year, I almost exclusively flew the bomber variants in the Pacific and a variety of planes on the Western Front, but after the updates, I have been flying the fighter variants on all factions almost exclusively. And with these planes, I'm actually using the 2x rocket loadouts. I'm going to touch on why I decided to go that route in just a bit, but before that, let me show you the loadouts I decided to go with for each plane. For the Mustang P-51D, I go right side pretty much all the way down except for the 5th, since the beacon rarely works, if at all. I actually tried quite a few times to see if I can help the team out using that loadout, but the beacon just kept disappearing. And actually, if anyone knows if I'm doing anything wrong, please let me know down in the comment section below. For the Corsair F4u1c, I mostly went the right side, but skipping the smoke because it does take away your emergency repair, and I went with improved controlled surfaces other than fin barrel to give me better maneuverability. And for the Zero A6M5, it is exactly identical to the F4u1c, so no change there. The Spitfire VB is also quite a no-brainer for me, and this has actually not changed since before the patch, and in my opinion it is way underpowered compared to the German Bf-109G6. It has no emergency repair, no high altitude package, or smoke. The guns are also not as good for dogfights compared to the Bf-109G6. And of course, lastly, the best plane in the game in my opinion would be the Bf-109G6. It has everything you want in the plane. It has great guns, nitrous, emergency repair, smoke, rockets, and fin barrel. If you want to go for a high altitude package to cheese and win on all your dogfights, then it's also available as well. So now, let's talk about why I decided to go for this loadout direction on all the planes. Because anti-air guns and Fliegerfaust have been buffed, it is almost impossible to do bombing runs effectively. You have to be stationary for a while. Killing tanks in one pass may also still be viable, but you have to dive bomb and line up the sights, but that exposes you to Fliegerfaust for an easy kill. And if you try high altitude bombing, it becomes less accurate. Flares are also next to useless in the Pacific Theater, so there is one less thing going for them. As for the fighter variants, the 8x rockets, which were the ones I used to use by the way, are still viable, but I have since moved away from them despite those rockets allowing for a bigger margin of error, since you have more rockets of course, and also are better at killing infantry groups over a slightly larger radius. And the reason of that would be the time it takes to actually shoot all those rockets. To unload all 8 rockets, you're required to stay in the same flight path for a longer period of time, and those are often the determining factor of whether you live or die from an anti-air gun. The 2x rockets allow you to quickly launch them and then proceed with evasive maneuvers that increase your chance of survival. This is often the case when I'm trying to duel an AA gun, which you can see in the background footage. The 2x rockets also give a quicker burst damage to surprise tankers and give them less chance to hit quick repair between the rocket barrage. The maximum damage from the 2x rockets to a medium tank is about 80, but often slightly lower, and I believe the damage drops to the upper 50s against a heavy tank like the Tiger. But even then, I find it pretty easy to kill tanks with them, especially a lot of times they do not have full health, or they thought they were doing fine with 70 plus health. One quick burst from the 2x rocket certainly will surprise most tankers, except for maybe the ones with insane reflex to hit the quick repair button. And those rockets can also one-shot a transport vehicle, and they are one of my favorite targets because they can often net you a few kills and a vehicle kill bonus. And the downside of using this over the 8x rockets will really come down to less room for error and slightly less effectiveness at bombarding a larger area with lots of infantry. But even then, the 2x are not too bad for that. You can often send one rocket on each infantry or each group of infantry and give you a few kills easily. So here you have it, my 2020 year-end thoughts on how the planes perform. The BF-109G6 is still my favorite plane, followed by the Pacific ones, then the P-51D, and lastly the Spitfire VB. Let me know what you think and which plane is your favorite down in the comment section below. I'm hopeful that 2021 will be a better year for the Battlefield franchise, the gaming world, and the actual world overall. Thank you for sticking around, and see you again soon.